Greetings, gamers, geeks, and glorious other humans. I'm Nerdy Kyogre, and today we're building my new gaming and streaming PC. So today I'm going to take you on a little tour of the case I'm using, take you through my parts, and show you how I build a computer. Alright, let's do this. So, the case we're looking at today. This is the Cooler Master MB311L ARGB. Fans light up, nice mesh panel. It's a high airflow case, and in fact, the cheapest micro ATX high airflow case that you can buy. I got this example for just 70 Canadian rubles. The conversion to freedom units will be on screen. And yeah, let's get right into it. So this front panel comes off. I believe you just yank the bottom. I am not going to be doing that today because I'm going to be leaving the two 120mm intakes as they are. But let's get right into this. We've got a nice tempered glass side panel. They're captive, so that's a nice touch. And yeah, you see this? I will do the peel later. You'll get it. You'll get it. Don't worry. Do not worry about it. Where should I put this at? There. And we will also pop off this panel, which just slides off with two little thumb screws at the back, as you can see. Put that in there as well. And this is what we got. As you can see here, we got, from this view, you can see you can put up to three 120mm fans or 240mm rad up here, 280mm rad up here, dual 120s or 140s, and a single 120mm exhaust. Now, I am not impressed with this. This is very bent, as you can tell from this angle. But yeah, we'll see if that happens we'll see if that's an issue when I try to muscle in the I/O shield. Other than that, we got two 2.5-inch mounts under our graphics card. Now turning the case around for a moment, you can see we have a nice roomy PSU basement. We have a dual 3.5-inch drive cage and then two 2.5-inch mounts up here, which I do not plan on using. How the hell does that work? I'm deeply, deeply confused. Anyway, this is my first experience with this case, actually. So I guess we should start by taking it apart. Let's see what we got in here other than a bunch of silica gel. We have the Cooler Master ARGB controller. And this thing's going to power our two daisy-chained ARGB fans. It's just powered from SATA off the motherboard. And it has a little button on it. You can also wire up the reset switch to it, which is what we're going to be doing today. No idea where to mount this. And what else we got? Everything's pretty standard. I/O up here is just the audio jacks, power reset, hard drive LED, and two USB 3.2 Gen 1 Type A ports. No Type C, but for the money, that's perfectly reasonable. In terms of headers, we have our ARGB header, and that's going to go into the ARGB controller using the ASRock Aces MSI header. You can also run this off the motherboard. It'll use whatever software Cooler Master uses. It's Asus AuraSync compatible. Or OpenRGB, which is what I typically use. Yeah, and then this cable goes out to your ARGB fans. Then up here, then over here we got USB, power hard drive, reset switch, all bog standard, and a 3-pin PWM fan connector, which is slightly awkward. I'm just going to leave it at that. The rest of this bag is hard drive brackets, M.2 screws, zip ties, oh, sorry, not M.2 screws, 2.5-inch drive screws, and standoffs, all that good stuff. So, I guess we should get into the rest of what I'm putting in here. Turn this around. That was not my ARGB controller falling on the floor. You saw nothing. Editor, cut that out, please.
Hey guys, this is Editor Kyogre here. I am absolutely not going to be cutting that out. I'm going to leave it in because it's freaking hilarious. As you are.
Anyway, what else we got? We have our motherboard bundle. I'm going to leave that on the anti-static surface. We have our motherboard bundle. This here has a Ryzen 5 2600. That's a 6-core processor, unlocked as all AMD chips are. I originally wanted the Zen 2-based 3100 actually, but availability in Canada is not the greatest at the moment. I was able to get a banging deal on the 2600. 6 cores will make it much better for recording and streaming anyway, at a loss of maybe 5% of raw game frames. We've got, that is housed in a MSI B450M Bazooka Max Wi-Fi, as you can see on the box. Basically, I want to stick to the MSI Max motherboards because I know they'll support Ryzen 5000 later, or I have the best odds of it. MSI is really good about that. I wanted Wi-Fi because I run Linux, and Realtek drivers are a pain in the butt. So, and with micro ATX, this was basically the only reasonably priced option. With that, we have 16 gigs of G.Skill Ripjaws V3200 CL16. I plan on overclocking this. I'm hoping to get 3466 CL15 out of it. That would be ideal, but really just anything over 3400. I want a bit of an Infinity Fabric boost without stressing the Zen Plus Fabric too much.
Can we just appreciate the fact that I legitimately thought I was going to get more than XMP out of that kit? Like, seriously, Kyogre.
And all that cooled by the Cooler Master Hyper 212 Black, which you see before you. Very standard, very popular cooler, and brilliant performance for the price. In terms of storage, or I guess I should go to the graphics card next, and for graphics we have here the MSI Gaming MX Radeon R10 5600 XT. Now the reason I went 5600 XT over NVIDIA is because NVIDIA drivers on Linux are hot garbage, and I'm going to be running mixed refresh rate displays, and I just don't want to fight that. Also, this thing has RTX 2060 gaming performance for 1660 Ti money, so it's really a no-brainer. I should mention that both my CPU and GPU are used. Brilliant deals, good condition. Apart from the 3 bent pins I found on the CPU, I hope to God that thing posts. But GPU's in good condition. And yeah, everything else pretty standard. I'm going to be running 3 drives. I've got this 1TB WD Caviar Blue, 7200 RPM, bog standard. 500 gig WD SN550, which I probably should have screwed in when I built the motherboard bundle. But we'll get to that later. And the 240 gig WD green you see before you is actually not going in this build. That's going to go into the laptop that I have running in the background here. And I'm going to be pulling the 500 gig WD blue 2.5 inch out of that. And finally, we got the power supply. This is a 650 watt cheap Seasonic unit. Non-modular, partly because I want to stress the cable management capabilities of this case, and partly because I'm a masochist. It's nothing particularly special, no real fancy overcurrent protection, no modularity or anything like that, but it's 80 plus bronze, 650 watt, monstrously overkill for what I need. And the only bit we have left is the Arctic P12 PWM, which is just going to act as a standard 120 mil exhaust. Because I want some form of exhaust in the case, but I also want the ARGB at the front to look good. So, without further ado, let's get into this. I'll show you the build, show the process of building this system, and talk to you at the end about my thoughts. Also, and don't worry, everything's going to work fine, because if you're seeing this video, it was edited on the system I'm building. Without further ado, let's go.
I'd just like to make it very clear that what I just tried to do was extremely ill-advised. I thought I could save some time by installing the GPU with the case upright, but that went very badly, and had I not had a particularly well-armored PCI Express slot, could have broken my motherboard or my case. was at this point, around the time the build successfully posted, that I decided the system needed a name. I've decided to call this build Galaxar because its aesthetic reminds me of the purple self-cloning alien lord from Monsters vs. Aliens.
All right, and in that couple minutes for you and many hours for me, we have a built, overclocked, ready to go gaming and streaming PC in the MB311L. Now, my impressions honestly are good. The build went really smooth. I did have an issue where I did have a couple no post scenarios, so that was a little bit more time consuming than it needed to be. But let's talk about the case. And after building in it, I am going to give this case an overall 7 out of 10. It's a brilliant case on a budget. And because you're on a budget, you have to be willing to deal with some quirks. So let's start with the good stuff. Aesthetics, obviously, this is a really good looking case. I love the ARGB fans. They light up the inside. It's just so clean. I love it. And the tempered glass side panel sitting flush with the PSU shroud. It's great. Thermal performance is obviously going to be brilliant. I've got this thing kitted out with 3 120mm fans, as I said before. And with that and the Hyper 212, my Ryzen 2600 at 4.1 gigahertz, 1.4 volts V-core, all core, hit 80 degrees under Prime 95. Now that's impressive considering this is a 150 watt cooler and it was pulling 155 watts. And the GPU, all sliders cranked in Adrenaline, was hitting a hot spot in the high 70s. So thermal performance is brilliant. And it's surprisingly quiet, actually. The included fans have a little bit of bearing noise, but there's not much wind noise, especially with the side panel closed. I'm quite impressed with that. So you should buy this case, obviously, right? Well, not exactly. There are a few things you have to deal with. Number one is there is 0 rear cable clearance. I'm not even going to show you the back panel because this thing barely fits on. It actually isn't quite flush. But anyway, there's no cable clearance, no cable management. Like, really, Cooler Master, put cable management channels in your case. The only thing that is in there is 3 hooks that I think you're meant to zip tie your cables to, but I'm not sure. Inside, there's no grommets on any of the holes. That's not really an issue. The hard drive cage is just in the way. This case isn't very deep, right? So there's not actually a whole ton of clearance for cables in there. And since I was using a non-modular PSU, it caused a lot of issues. However, cable management in this side is really good, and I do like the toolless drive cage as an idea. It just wasn't all that well executed. And then, other than that, the fans are fine. I can't speak for the ARGB controller because I actually lost it during the build. It's somewhere in this room, so we're just controlling that off the motherboard for now. The fans, however, are not 4-pin PWM, they're 3-pin DC, which may influence your decision. DC fans just aren't as good, aren't as nice to use. The lack of USB-C is an issue. It's fine on this budget though. And of course, the entire rear panel. The punch-out PC. I cut myself on the punch-out PCIe slots repeatedly. So yeah, that was fun. Also, there's dust filters for the top, but no dust filtering for the front, and actually not a lot of clearance here. If you're going to water cool in this thing, I would recommend sticking to top mounting your radiators, because this thing doesn't actually support a 360 in the front, and there's way better dust filtration up here. So yeah, in conclusion, the MB311L is a brilliant case in terms of performance if you're willing to sacrifice a little on the building experience. And honestly, this has been fun. I like this case, I like this build, it's going to serve me very well. The benchmarks I've run so far have been extremely good. I don't have any game performance metrics for you yet, but I'm sure as you see my videos, everything will be buttery smooth. So that's about all I got. Stay tuned for part 2 of this video where we try out PC Building Simulator and see if it's anything like the real experience. And don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell so you can see when part 2 comes out. Bye!